Welcome back to the channel, guys. I just wanted to do a video this week talking about the new Trek Roscoe. They just released all the specs for the new 2022 Trek Roscoe lineup, and it's pretty exciting news. As a owner of a Trek Roscoe, the 2018 there in the background, I've had that on the channel for the past 3 or 4 years. It's my introduction into mountain biking. So there's been a lot of Trek Roscoe content on the channel, so I thought it'd be cool to take a look at the new Trek Roscoe just released for 2022 models coming out next year. And yeah, let's dive into it and talk about some of the big changes that Trek finally put on the bike. I think they've maybe listened to some of the complaints over the years of the Roscoe and addressed them. So yeah, if you go over to trekbikes.com, I'm on the Canadian version because I'm in Canada. But you can see right off the bat, one of the most exciting things for North America anyways is the new Trek Roscoe 9 has been released in North America, which has never been available here before. It's pretty cool, it's pretty expensive, but it's a pretty loaded, nicely equipped bike. But anyways, before we get into that, let's talk about one of the main changes. Well, there's actually 2 main changes that I think are the most important things for the new Roscoe. Is number 1, they've gone to 29-inch wheels all across the board, except for I think the extra small size frames. They're still sticking to 27.5, but for most of the Roscoe 7, 8, and 9, they've gone to 29s. And I've been running 29s on my Roscoe for a while now, ever since I switched to it a couple years ago, switched to 29s, and I think that's a smart choice. I really do like the 29s a lot better than the 27.5 plus tires that came on my bike stock and were the stock tire size up until this year. So they've gone 29s on the 7, 8, and 9, and it's a 29 by 2.6 tire on all the models. So that's a nice compromise. You're still getting the 29-inch wheel size or tire size, but a little bit of width with the 2.6. And the other big thing that Trek has come out with for this year, and this is the thing that everybody has been complaining about kind of from day one of the Roscoe series, myself included, is the Boost 141. They finally got rid of that odd rear axle standard in quotes that they were using for a long time. They finally got rid of that, and they've gone to basically a traditional or standard Boost 148 proper through axle. And I think that'll make a lot of people happy out there looking for a new hardtail bike like the Roscoe. The 141 was always kind of the, I don't know if I should get that or not, or in my case, I didn't know better and I ended up getting that and then being kind of stuck with it and then trying to upgrade it, going with the only certain hubs were compatible and doing the whole end cap swap and all that stuff that I've become very accustomed to, and have a video on that. If anybody does have an older Trek Roscoe and they want to look into converting their hubs to something a little bit different than the stock hub, which again, that was another issue with the Roscoes in the past, that formula hub. A lot of issues with it. I had issues with it myself and replaced it with a Hope hub. And then finally, I actually have the Line 30 wheels with the Rapid Engage hub on there now. So let's take a look at the models. If you actually take a look at the Trek homepage, and once you find the page for the Roscoe, they have a cool little feature here where you can compare models. We can just hit this little compare plus here, and we can add, we'll add the 9, the 8, and the 7, and not even sure if they did release, there's a new Roscoe 6 for 2022. It actually hasn't changed very much, but we'll add it to the comparison just to take a look at the Roscoe 6 compared to the 7, 8, and now 9. So down at the bottom of the page, you'll see it'll say product compare. So we'll click on that, and there's our 4 bikes that we are going to compare, see basically the differences between the 4 models. So there we are with the 4 different models. We have the different price ranges. These are again Canadian prices. So we're going from $13.99 Canadian all the way up to a pretty staggering almost $3,400 Canadian for an aluminum hardtail. That's, in my opinion, pretty crazy. I know bike prices have gone up a lot across the board. It's not just Trek, but holy smokes, that's a lot of money for an aluminum hardtail. Just comparing, like even looking at the Roscoe 8, it's coming in at just a hair under $2,800. And just to compare that to my 2018 Trek Roscoe 8 that I paid $15.99 Canadian for. Now granted, this Roscoe 8 is a lot nicer than the Roscoe 8 that I purchased, but it's again like $1,200 more. And that's a big chunk of change more for a hardtail. You're getting into, like in this around $3,000 mark, you're looking at possibly getting into low-end full suspension bikes. Like even the Giant Stance is probably less money than that, or lower-end Giant Trance is low 3,000s, or Norco, some of their full suspension bikes are around that range. So it's tough. I don't know, that's a little bit of a hard sale for me at that price, but they've really addressed the issues with the bike and made this sort of a beast of a hardtail finally. So if we just kind of go down the page here and take a look, all the frames are exactly the same, it looks like, except for the, I guess, the 6. Let's just kind of, we'll leave the 6 as kind of the outlier here. It hasn't changed very much from last year. So the main comparison we'll talk about on this video between the 7, 8, and 9. They do have exactly the same frame, it looks like, on all 3 models. They did add the ISCG mounts on like around the crank, which is cool. So we can mount a chain guard or a bash guard, chain guide main or a bash guard, which is nice. The older models never had that, and we had to resort to other ways of doing such a thing, which there wasn't very many. So that is really cool that they finally added that ISCG mount on the Roscoe series this year, the 7, 8, and 9. And again, Boost 148 across the 7, 8, and 9. Still sticking with Boost 141 for the Roscoe 6. I'm thinking the Roscoe 6 is using last year's frame, probably. So again, for most of this video, we'll kind of focus on the 7, 8, and 9. Going down, taking a look at the fork that comes on these different bikes. For the 7, we're looking at the RockShox Recon Silver, 140 millimeters of travel this year. So we're up 20 millimeters of travel from last year's models and the previous models of the Roscoe. We've gone up 20 millimeters in travel. Standard 110, Boost 110, which is nice. So yeah, the Recon Silver is a decent fork, I think. It's a lot better than the RockShox Judy Silver that came on my bike stock way back in 2018. So I think this is a really reasonable fork that's serviceable. You can use it and not have to complain too much about it at all. Bumping up to the Roscoe 8, we're looking at the RockShox 35 Gold. A lot better fork. Again, 140 millimeters of travel. That's a decent fork. That's a nice fork to have on your Roscoe. And then again, if we're taking a look at the 9, we're really a nice fork, the Fox Rhythm 36. That's that's a big beefy fork for a Roscoe, which is nice with the 36 millimeter stanchions, 140 millimeter travel again. But again, we're talking a hefty price tag to get up to that Roscoe 9, but it is a nice fork. I also noticed here on the website that they have max compatible fork travel, which is nice. So in the past, like myself, I have a 140 millimeter fork on my Roscoe, and a lot of people have put 130, 140. I've seen people put even 160 millimeter travel forks on their Roscoe, but at least Trek is actually coming out and saying, it's safe to put a 150 millimeter fork on the Roscoe. Now we're taking a look at the hubs now here on the 7, 8, and 9. So it looks like basically all 3 bikes are using the Line 30 wheels, which is a nice rim. The 7 is using, I'm not really familiar with this rear hub. It's a Shimano MT510 center lock, but it is Boost 148. I really have no experience with this hub, but anything's got to be better than that Formula hub that's been on all the Roscoes in the past. If we step up to the 7, we're getting the 108 tooth rapid drive hub from Bontrager, which is a really nice hub. I'm just running the 54 tooth version on mine, and it's great. I imagine the 108 tooth version is even better. So that's a nice rear hub that I don't think anybody's going to have any problems with in the future. Well, there'll be no need to upgrade your hubs in the future on the Roscoe 8. I'm pretty certain of that. Stepping up to the 9, we're looking at the Shimano Microspline free hub. I don't have much experience with that, but I do believe, and the 9 does have the Shimano 12-speed system on it, so you do need that Shimano Microspline free hub for that. Should be fine. I haven't heard about any issues with that, so I think the 9 will be fine for rear hubs as well. They all have the same rear skewer, nothing too exciting there. All the bikes come equipped with the XR4 team issue tires. I don't have any experience with them. I've used their XR3s in the past, and they were decent tires, so I think the XR4s are a little more aggressive than the XR3, so they should be fine for all the rowdy type of riding that I think this new Roscoe series is aimed towards. Again, just the tire size is 29 by 2.6, like I talked about earlier. Looks like everything's coming with a Trans X dropper. You do notice that I think at 150 millimeters of travel, it's a little bit short for a dropper, especially nowadays. A lot of bikes are coming with 170, sort of, especially on the large, extra large frames. But the Roscoe is sticking with 150 on their large, extra large frames. I do notice on the 7 and 9 that they have the option of 130 millimeters for the dropper on the medium sizes, and 100 millimeters, all three, for the small sizes. Everything else pretty much like the handlebar, stem, that's all pretty stock stuff, nothing too exciting there. Just looks like mainly House, like Bontrager branded stuff on there like they've had in the past. Then basically we'll go down to the more important components like brakes and your drivetrain. So the brakes on the 7, looks like they're coming with Shimano MT200 hydraulic disc brakes. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, my Trek Roscoe had the same brakes on it stock, and they're not the best brakes in the world. They're hydraulic, so at least they're not mechanical, but that's something, if you did go with the Roscoe 7, you'd probably be looking at upgrading, I would imagine, sometime in the future. The MT200s are pretty basic hydraulic brakes. But if we look at the 8 and the 9, they're both equipped with Shimano 4-piston hydraulic brakes. The 8 using the MT4100 series, and it looks like the 9 is using the M6120 series, which is a little bit nicer. Looking at the specs between the 4100 Shimano and the 6100, not a whole lot of difference. Maybe you're saving a little bit of weight on the 6100. They look a little bit nicer, but functionality wise, I would bet that you don't notice much difference between those two brake sets between the 8 and the 9. So that's something to consider if you're looking to get the 8. The brakes, I think, will be totally fine. No need to upgrade them anytime in the future. And the 9, great brakes, 4-piston, no problems there. The 8 and the 9 are same brake rotors, look good there, RT66s all around. It does look like, this is nice here, just noticing on the 8 and the 9, they are using 203 millimeter rotors. And I'm looking here, it looks to me, basically looking at the site here, that they're equipped with 203 millimeter rotors front and back. It doesn't say otherwise. That's kind of cool. It's those are big rotors for compared to the 180 and 160 that was running on my bike when I got it in 2018. The 7, it looks like, is running just 180 millimeters front and back. Go down to take a look at the drivetrain between the 7, 8, and 9. Looks like the 7 and the 9 are sticking with Shimano drivetrains, which I personally prefer, but that's just a personal preference. There's some people like Shimano, some people like SRAM. It's up to kind of personal preference, but it looks like the 7 just has your standard Shimano Dior 6100 series 12 speed. And yeah, same with the cranks. They're the Shimano sort of mid-level cranks, 170 millimeter cranks, which are nice. Yeah, and then if we look at the 8 is running SRAM. It's kind of weird that they have Shimano on the 7 and the 9, and then just they put SRAM on the 8, sort of the mid-range model. It's running sort of a combination of NX and GX, which is fine. I just wanted to see here. Yeah, so they must be running, if I look at the cassette, yeah, they're just running the NX style cassette on the Roscoe 8, so it's not running an X-Drive hub. Yeah, if we look back up at the hubs on it, there doesn't say anything about X-Drive, so they stuck with the cheaper NX cassette on the Trek Roscoe 8, so it uses the same old Shimano body to put the free hub on. So they've stuck with that. They're using an nice X1 Eagle crank on the Roscoe 8, which is nice. One little odd thing I did notice, again, probably anybody buying a bike at this price range is going to be replacing the pedals or have their own pedals. I do notice that the 6, 7, and 8 does come with pedals. Most people probably throw those right out and replace them with something else. The 9 doesn't come with any pedals. Most people are not going to care about that, but some people might. So I just thought I'd mention that in there. Weight across the board, of course, the 9's the lightest, but they're all relatively similar to each other. Now, if we go just take a look, I'm just going to choose the 8 here to take a look at the geometry of the bike, because they really did change the geometry of the bike pretty substantially from previous models. Every year, the Roscoe 8's gotten a little bit slacker, but this year they've gone right. They've finally basically done what people have wanted. If we look at the comparison, or if we look at the geometry of the bike, the big thing that everybody is probably going to notice right away is this head angle, 65-degree head angle. That is pretty slack that is really slack for the Roscoe. I think mine came in stock at like 68, and bumping it to the 140 millimeter fork, I'm probably like about 67 degrees now. So, and I think last year's model was 67.5 or 67.3, something like that. With the 120 millimeter fork. So they've really bumped up the head angle, the slackness of it, which will make it nice for nice descents, give you a little bit more of a raked out feel on the bike, which will be nice. You'll also notice with that head angle of 65, the reach has increased on the bike. It's only about, like if I'm looking at an extra large, you're going between, it was about 45.7 millimeters of reach, and now it's gone to 49.5. It's only like 4 millimeters, but in the bike world, 4 millimeters is huge. So that's a nice little increase on the frame reach. Frame stack is also increased. It's just basically a bigger bike than they have been in the past, which I personally like. Some people might like bikes smaller like they used to be, but for me, a big stable bike is preferred. And if we look at the effective seat tube angle, it's coming in at 74.7 degrees, which doesn't like jump out to anybody as being super steep. I know a lot of the newer full suspension bikes are 76 degrees or so. So 74.7 isn't that great. But if we look at last year's model of the Roscoe, it was coming in about 71 degrees or so. So it's a lot steeper than it has been in the past, which I think will help the bike out when you are climbing. A couple other things I did notice on the bike, just looking at their webpage here, they have a lot of cool things. They've added some really nice chain protectors. This little frame guard on the bottom of the frame looks really nice. That'll help people out from damaging their frames. internal cable routing. They've always had sort of internal cable routing, but it looks a lot nicer this year, and I'll have to see a model in person to know for sure that they're internally routing the shifter and the dropper post cable, but I'm imagine they do this year. What else do we got? Like I said, the ISCG mounts are nice. Just all in all, it really seems like Trek finally listened to people over the past 4 years riding the Roscoe and the issues they had with it. You know, it wasn't slack enough, or they wished it had a proper Boost 148 axle, or they wished it had the ISCG mounts on it to mount a bash guard or chain guide. Those are all the little things that people complained about a lot with the Roscoe series, and it looks like Trek finally got it right. But that comes with a price, of course. Like I said, you're going from $13.99 for a Roscoe 6, which is basically nothing much has improved on it since last year. So you're looking at $2,000 to get into a Roscoe 7, $2,000 Canadian. That's a lot of money for a hardtail that you'd still, well, I think honestly the Roscoe 7 you'd be pretty happy with. You might have to upgrade the brakes, but for $2,000 it gets you a pretty good, pretty decent bike. Yeah, so the Roscoe 8 coming in at $27.99 Canadian, that's a big price tag to pay for a hardtail, but it is nicely equipped. You wouldn't have to do any upgrades on it, I wouldn't think anyways, and be perfectly happy with it. Or we can just step right up to the Roscoe 9 at a staggering $33.99 and 99 cents Canadian, which is crazy for a aluminum hardtail in my opinion, but man, that's a nice bike. It's got, you know, your Fox 36, 4-piston brakes, great Shimano 12-speed drivetrain. Overall, a great bike. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I talked about the 7 and the 8 as far as their drivetrain. The Shimano drivetrain on the Roscoe 9 is the Shimano SLX 12-speed, which is a nice system with the Shimano XT rear derailleur. So you're getting some really nice components on the 9, which I guess you should for the price. Some E13 cranks. I have no experience with them, but I'm sure they're great. You'll notice all 3 bikes do 30-tooth chainring, which is nice for these 12 speeds. And you can go up to a maximum of 34-tooth chainring on all 3 bikes. Now, just one other thing I wanted to talk about on these bikes is the finish available on them. I know colors are not that important, but they sort of are if you're looking at a brand new bike. You want to make sure you like the way it looks, right? Like I know for me, being a new customer, just getting into mountain biking a few years ago, color sold me. I fell in love with the color of the Trek Roscoe, and that sold me. And so I think it's important, especially for new people, they're coming into the sport, their eye catches something, and that's what they go with. So we're looking at the 7. They've come out with 3 color options for the 7, just a plain matte black. They've come out with this teal color, which is really cool. I like the teal color with the red and orange sort of Trek logo, which is really nice. Out of all 3, the 7, 8, and the 9, I think this is my favorite finish on the 7, this teal color. I always like a flashy colored bike if I can find it. I'm not a big fan of just plain matte black bikes like a lot of people are. I like a little bit of color. So for me, I'd really be looking at this Roscoe 7 based on this color scheme. And this is another Miami green color they have available on the 7, which is nice, I must admit. If we go over to the 8, see what we have available for finishes on the 8 this year. They have 2 options. They have this, what they call matte black olive. I mean, it kind of looks like just black to me. Maybe in person it has a little bit of a green tinge to it, but looking on the website here, it looks pretty black, but I can see a little tinge of like a olive color to it with the red Trek logo. It does, I think, looks pretty nice. And they have this blue color as well, kind of an electric blue. I'm not a huge fan of this shade of blue, but it it's a nice option to have for the Roscoe 8. It's too bad they don't come back out with the orange. I think that was one of their most popular colors they had, and I wish they'd come back with that. If they did, I'd be maybe a little more inclined to be trying to get my hands on a new 2022. I know that seems ridiculous basing any decisions on color, but I think sometimes it's important. And if we look at the 9, now this is a weird color scheme. This matte quicksand to olive fade black. If you look at sort of the overview image of it, it looks decent, but if you look closer, it's got some weird like little paint fleck or paint splatter finish to it. Like if you look at this image here, and I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of this finish. And for that amount of money, wow, I don't know if I'd want this kind of paint splattered or mud splattered looking finish on the bike. Maybe some other people would like it, but I'm personally not a big fan of this finish on the Roscoe 9. You get everything really like a really super duper slick bike, $3,500, and then this paint scheme, in my opinion, is kind of, I don't know. But anyways, guys, I thought I'd do this video, throw it out there on the channel. I know there hasn't been a lot of content on the channel lately, so I thought I'd throw this out there while I'm still trying to get back into my groove, recovering from the broken collarbone. I've done a little bit of riding, still just trying to get my mental or my head back into riding. It's been a little trickier, a little harder than I thought to jump right back in. So I'm just taking my time there. So hopefully you guys stick with the channel. Hopefully you found this video informative, especially if you are looking at the new Trek Roscoe coming out for next year. I'd get those orders in soon, because like with the way the bike industry is now, you might be lucky if we get this by next spring. Hopefully, I'm hoping everything gets back to normal for next year in the bike industry. It's been crazy trying to find anything this year, and hopefully next year is better. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully we found it informative. Trek really did step up this year, or for next year, 2022, with the Boost 148 Slacker head tube angle, the ISCG mounts, 29-inch wheels. The Trek Roscoe series for next year is really nice with a really steep price tag. If you haven't liked the video, please make sure to hit that now. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. We're coming up on hopefully 10,000 subscribers in the near future, and that'll be a huge milestone for the channel, so can't wait for that to happen shortly. So until next time, keep your feet on the pedals.